Captain Jake Morrison walked through the narrow halls of the UES Defiant. His boots made loud sounds on the metal floor. The ship was old, very old. Paint was falling off the walls. Water dripped from broken pipes. The lights kept going on and off. Jake stopped at a window and looked outside. Other ships in the space dock were new and shiny. They had smooth hulls and bright lights. The Defiant looked like junk next to them. Her hull was covered in rust. Dents and scratches marked every surface. She was supposed to be scrapped years ago. "Captain Morrison to the bridge," came a voice over the old speakers. The sound was fuzzy and hard to hear. Jake sighed and walked toward the bridge. He knew what this was about. Another complaint about his ship. Another request to transfer to a better vessel. The bridge was small and cramped. Old computers lined the walls. Their screens flickered with green text. The captain's chair was torn and patched with tape. Jake sat down and looked at his crew. They were all misfits like him. Lieutenant Lisa Kane stood at the engineering station. She was young but skilled. Her uniform was always dirty from working on the engines. Oil stains covered her hands. She could fix anything with spare parts and determination. The Defiant only kept running because of her hard work. "Report," Jake said. "The fusion reactor is acting up again," Lisa said. "I can keep it stable for now, but we need new parts soon." "What about weapons?" "The plasma cannons are offline, have been for months. We only have the old railguns working, and maybe half the missile tubes." Jake nodded. The railguns were ancient weapons. They shot metal. Slugs using magnetic fields. Most ships had energy weapons now. Plasma cannons and particle beams were much more advanced. But the Defiant was stuck with old technology. Tony Walsh sat at the weapons station. He was an older man with gray hair. He had served on many ships before ending up on the Defiant. Tony knew every weapon system in the human fleet, even the old, ones that others had forgotten. "Sir, we have enough ammo for maybe 3 fights," Tony said. "After that, we'll be throwing rocks." "Maybe we will be," Jake said with a smile. "Sam, what's our next patrol route?" Sam Green was the navigation officer. He was quiet and smart. Sam could plot a course through any star system. He made the Defiant dance between asteroids and planets like a much smaller ship. "We're heading to the Kepler 442 system," Sam said. 3 jumps from here. It's a quiet sector. Nothing ever happens there." "Good. Maybe we can avoid any real trouble." Kelly Brown looked up from her communication station. She was the youngest crew member. Kelly had joined the fleet 6 months ago. She was assigned to the Defiant because no other ship wanted her. Kelly had a reputation for asking too many questions. "Sir, I'm getting reports from the inner systems," Kelly said. "Something big is happening. The fleet is moving toward the core worlds." "What kind of something?" Jake asked. "I don't know. The channels are restricted, but all the good ships are being recalled." Jake felt a cold fear in his stomach. If the fleet was moving, it meant trouble, big trouble. The kind that required the newest and strongest ships. Ships like the Defiant. Were left behind. Dr. Nina Clark walked onto the bridge. She was the ship's medical officer. Nina was older than Jake and had seen many battles. She had requested assignment to the Defiant because she was tired of the politics on bigger ships. "Captain, I need to talk to you," Nina said, "in private." Jake followed her to a side room. Nina closed the door and looked serious. "I've been monitoring the medical channels," she said. "There are reports of casualties, lots of them. The Zephyrians have attacked 3 human colonies." Jake felt his heart drop. The Zephyrians were one of the most powerful alien races in the galaxy. They had been at peace with humans for 50 years. If they were attacking now, it meant war. "How bad is it?" Jake asked. "Bad, The colonies are gone, millions dead. The fleet is scrambling to defend the core worlds. But Jake, we're not being recalled. We're being left out here. Jake understood. The Defiant was too old and weak to matter in a real war. Command would use their best ships to protect what was important. Earth, Mars, the major colonies. Ships. Like the Defiant would guard empty space while the real fighting happened elsewhere. What do you think we should do? Jake asked. I think we should do our job, Nina said, whatever that turns out to be. Jake returned to the bridge. His crew was watching him. They had heard the rumors, too. They knew what it meant to be forgotten. All right, people, Jake said, we have our orders. We patrol the outer rim. We watch for trouble. We do our duty. What if trouble finds us? Tony asked. Then we deal with it, Jake said. The ship may be old. We may be the rejects of the fleet, but we're still human. We still serve Earth. If the Zephyrians want to test us, let them come. The crew nodded. They were scared but ready. The Defiant began to move away from the dock. Her old engines coughed and sparked, but she moved. She always moved when her crew needed her to. Jake watched the stars through the front window. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrians were coming. They had destroyed human colonies with their advanced ships and energy weapons. They thought humans were weak. They thought human technology was primitive. Maybe they were right. But Jake Morrison and his crew were about to teach the galaxy a lesson. Sometimes the oldest dog had the sharpest bite. Sometimes the weakest ship carried the strongest hearts. The Defiant jumped to hyperspace. Behind her, the space dock grew smaller. Ahead lay the unknown. And somewhere in that darkness, destiny was waiting. The Defiant dropped out of hyperspace near a small asteroid field. Captain Jake Morrison studied the sensor readings. The system was supposed to be empty, but something was there. Something big. Contact, Kelly Brown said from her station. Multiple ships. They're not human. Jake felt his pulse quicken. How many? 7 ships. Large cargo vessels. And 3 escorts. Sam Green worked at his navigation station. Sir, those are Zephyrian designs. Military transports. A supply convoy? Tony Walsh said. They're heading toward human space. Jake studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian ships were huge compared to the Defiant. Each transport was 5 times larger than his ship. The escorts were sleek warships with advanced weapons and shields. They haven't seen us yet, Kelly said. We're hidden in the asteroid shadow. Options? Jake asked. We could report their position to Fleet Command, Sam suggested. Let the big ships handle it. The nearest fleet unit is 6 hours away, Tony said. These ships will be long gone. By then, Jake looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. The smart thing was to hide and report. The safe thing was to avoid a fight they couldn't win. Lisa, how are the engines? Jake asked. Running hot but stable, she replied. We can move when you need us to. Tony, what about weapons? 2 railguns are working, maybe 20 missiles. Not much against ships that size. Jake made his decision. We're going to hit them. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Tony smiled. About time we did something interesting. Sir, Sam said carefully, those ships have energy shields. Our old weapons won't scratch them. Maybe, Jake said, but we won't know until we try. Kelly, monitor their communications. I want to know what they're thinking. The Defiant moved out of the asteroid field. She was small and quiet compared to the massive Zephyrian ships. Jake hoped they wouldn't notice her until it was too late. Getting close, Sam reported. 1,000 kilometers. Tony, target the lead escort. Fire when ready. The railgun charged with a deep hum. The weapon was over 100 years old. It used magnetic fields to shoot metal slugs at incredible speed. Most modern ships had forgotten about kinetic weapons. Firing, Tony said. The tungsten slug left the railgun at 30,000 kilometers per second. It crossed the space between ships in an instant. The Zephyrian escort's energy shields flickered as the slug hit them. Then the slug punched through. The metal projectile tore through the alien ship's hull like paper. Internal explosions lit up the escort's interior. The ship began to spin out of control. Direct hit, Tony said with surprise. Their shields didn't stop it. Jake smiled. Fire again. The second railgun shot hit the damaged escort in the engine section. The ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal. The other Zephyrians finally noticed the small human ship attacking. They're turning toward us, Sam said. All ships are moving to attack. Evasive maneuvers, Jake ordered. Keep us moving. The Defiant danced between the large transport ships. Her small size was an advantage now. The enemy had trouble targeting such a small and fast target. Energy beams flashed past the Defiant's hull. The Zephyrians were using plasma cannons and particle weapons. Their shots were powerful but slow. Sam kept the ship moving, using the transport ships as cover. Second escort is firing, Kelly warned. A plasma beam grazed the Defiant's port side. The hull glowed red hot, but held. The ship's old armor was thick and simple. It could absorb more damage than modern lightweight hulls. Return fire, Jake ordered. Tony launched a missile at the second escort. The weapon was old and chemical-powered. Not the guided plasma torpedoes used by modern ships, but it was fast and hard to track. The missile hit the escort's side. The explosion tore a hole in the alien ship's hull. Atmosphere rushed out in a white cloud. The escort was damaged, but still fighting. They're calling for help, Kelly said. Broadcasting on all frequencies. How long before reinforcements arrive? Jake asked. Unknown, but they seem very upset about something. Jake understood. The Zephyrians had studied human tactics for decades. They knew how to fight modern human ships with energy weapons and guided missiles. But they had never faced the primitive weapons of the Defiant. Their shields were designed to stop energy beams. Their armor was built to resist plasma fire. But solid metal slugs moving at incredible speed were something their technology couldn't handle. Target the transport ships, Jake ordered. Disable their engines. The Defiant's railguns spoke again. Tungsten slugs tore through the transport ships' hulls. The large vessels weren't built for combat. They had minimal armor and no real weapons. The first transport ship lost power and began to drift. The second tried to run, but took a railgun. Shot to the engine section. Explosions rippled along its hull. The third escort is closing, Sam warned. Let it come, Jake said. Tony, prepare the missiles. The Zephyrian warship was beautiful in a deadly way. Its hull was smooth and curved. Energy weapons glowed along its sides. It moved with grace and power. But beauty meant nothing in a fight. Defiant's missiles hit the escort from 3 directions. The explosions were crude but effective. Chemical fire and metal fragments ripped through the alien ship's hull. Direct hits, Tony reported. But it's still coming. The escort fired its main weapon. A brilliant plasma beam struck the Defiance. Forward section. The old ship shuddered, but kept fighting. Hull breach on deck 3, Lisa reported. Sealing emergency doors. Jake felt the ship shake around him. The Defiant was tough, but not invincible. They needed to end this fight quickly. Ram speed, he ordered. Take us straight at them? Sir, Sam asked. You heard me. Full power to the engines. The Defiant accelerated toward the enemy escort. The 2 ships rushed toward each other on a collision course. At the last second, Jake gave the order. Fire everything. Both railguns fired together. The tungsten slugs hit the escort's nose section. The alien ship's hull cracked and split. Internal explosions tore the vessel apart. Sam pulled the Defiant away from the debris. The escort was finished. The transport ships were disabled. A small human ship had won against impossible odds. "Damage report," Jake said. "Hull breaches on 3 decks, Lisa said. "But we're still space-worthy. Engines are running hot, but stable." "Casualties?" "2 injured." "Nothing serious," Dr. Nina Clark reported from SICKBAY. Jake looked at the tactical display. 7 Zephyrian ships had been destroyed or disabled. The Defiant had barely been scratched. All because the enemy had prepared for the wrong kind of fight. "Kelly, send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we've encountered and engaged a Zephyrian supply convoy. 7 ships neutralized." "Sir, they're going to ask how we managed this," Kelly said. "Tell them we used kinetic weapons. Old-fashioned railguns and chemical missiles." The crew was quiet for a moment. Then Tony started laughing. "They're going to think we're crazy." "Maybe we are," Jake said. "But we just proved something important. Modern doesn't always mean better. Sometimes the old ways work just fine." The Defiant turned away from the battle site. Behind her, the destroyed Zephyrian ships drifted in space. The enemy had learned a hard lesson about underestimating human determination and old technology. But Jake knew this was just the beginning. The Zephyrians would not forget this defeat. They would come looking for revenge. And when they did, the Defiant would be ready. 3 days had passed since the convoy battle. The Defiant was running silent through the outer system. Captain Jake Morrison knew the Zephyrians would come looking for them. He was right. 5 contacts dropping out of hyperspace, Kelly Brown reported. "They're big ones." Jake studied the sensor display. 5 Zephyrian cruisers had appeared at the edge of the system. Each ship was twice the size of the Defiant. They carried enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. "They're scanning." "For us," Sam Green said, "moving in a search pattern." "How long before they find us?" Jake asked. 10 minutes, maybe less." The Defiant was hidden in the shadow of a gas giant. The planet's radiation made sensors less effective, but it wouldn't hide them forever. "Tony, status on weapons?" "Both railguns are ready, but we only have 12 missiles left." Jake nodded. 12 missiles against 5 cruisers. The math was not good. "Lisa, how are the engines?" "Running at 90%, she replied. "I can push them harder if needed." "You'll need to." This is going to be a running fight. The Zephyrian ships were getting closer. Their search pattern was methodical and professional. Jake recognized good tactics when he saw them. "Kelly, are you getting anything from their communications?" "Yes." "Sir, they're talking about the convoy attack. They're calling us the ghost ship because we appeared from nowhere." "What else?" "They're angry, really angry. The convoy was carrying something important. Medical supplies for their colonies." Jake felt a moment of doubt. Had they attacked a humanitarian mission? Then he remembered the human colonies the Zephyrians had destroyed. Millions of innocent people killed without warning. "Sir, they've found." "U.S.," Sam said. "All 5 ships are turning our way." "Then we run." "Sam, get us out of here. Full power to engines." The Defiant burst from the gas giant's shadow. Her old engines glowed bright blue as they pushed the ship to maximum speed. Behind her, the Zephyrian cruisers gave chase. "They're faster than us," Sam reported. "They'll catch us in 20 minutes. Then we need to slow them down. Tony, prepare the missiles." The chase began. The Defiant raced through the outer system, with 5 enemy ships behind her. Energy beams lit up space as the Zephyrians tried to bring down their target. "Incoming fire," Kelly warned. A plasma beam missed the Defiant by 50 meters. The old ship twisted and turned, using asteroids and space debris as cover. Sam was flying like a man possessed, pushing the ship through maneuvers that should have been impossible. "There's an asteroid belt ahead," Sam said. "We can lose them in there. Do it." The Defiant plunged into the asteroid field. Rocks the size of buildings floated in space around them. The ship wove between them like a fish swimming through coral. The Zephyrian ships followed, but had to slow down. Their larger size made the tight spaces dangerous. One cruiser scraped its hull against an asteroid, sending sparks flying. "Now we fight back," Jake said. "Tony, target the lead ship." The railgun fired. The tungsten slug shot through space and hit the nearest cruiser. The ship's shields flickered, but held this time. The Zephyrians had learned from the convoy battle. "Their shields are adapted," Tony reported. "They're stopping our slugs." "Then we try something else. Fire the missiles." 3 missiles launched. From the Defiant. They were old chemical rockets, not the smart weapons used by modern ships. But they were fast and hard to track in the asteroid field. The first missile hit a cruiser's shield and exploded. The energy barrier held but flickered. The second missile struck the same spot and broke through. The third missile hit the ship's hull and tore a hole in the armor. "Direct hit," Tony said. "They're venting atmosphere." But the other 4 ships were still coming. Energy beams flashed between the asteroids. One beam grazed the Defiant's stern, melting part of the hull. "Hull breach on Deck 5, Lisa reported, sealing it now. Jake needed a new plan. His ship couldn't take much more damage. And they were running out of missiles. "Kelly, remember what you told me about their communications?" "Sir? You said you could intercept their tactical frequencies. Can you do more than listen?" Kelly's eyes lit up. "You mean jam their signals?" "More than that. I want you to feed them false information. I don't know if our equipment can do that." "Lisa, what do you think?" The engineer looked thoughtful. "Our old sensor array puts out a lot of electromagnetic noise. If we overload it deliberately, we might be able to scramble their communications." "Do it." Lisa and Kelly worked together at their stations. Sparks flew from the sensor array as they pushed it beyond safe limits. The Defiant sensors went blind. But something else happened. "It's working," Kelly said. "Their ships are losing contact with each other." The Zephyrian cruisers began to drift apart. Without communication, they couldn't coordinate their attacks. One ship fired at what it thought was the Defiant, but hit an asteroid instead. "Now we pick them off one by one," Jake said. "Sam, take use behind that big rock." The Defiant used the asteroids as cover. She would appear, fire her railguns, and disappear again. The Zephyrians couldn't track her properly without their sensors working. One cruiser took multiple railgun hits to the same spot. The repeated impacts finally broke through its shields and armor. The ship began to list as its engines failed. "1 down," Tony said. 4 to go. But the Zephyrians were adapting. They spread out and began firing randomly into the asteroid field. Sooner or later, they would hit something. A lucky shot struck the Defiant's port side. The ship shuddered and spun. Emergency lights flashed on the bridge. "Damage report," Jake called. "Port engine is offline," Lisa said. "We're down to half power. Can you fix it?" "Not while we're fighting." Jake made a hard decision. "Sam, take us out of the asteroid field. We need room to maneuver." "Sir, they'll have clear shots at us." "That's what I'm counting on." The Defiant limped out of the asteroid field. The 4 remaining Zephyrian cruisers followed, their weapons charging for the kill. "All ships open fire," came a voice over the intercepted communications. Energy beams converged on the Defiant from 4 directions. But Sam had timed their exit perfectly. The beams hit the space where the ship had been, not where it was going. "Tony, Fire everything we have left. The railguns fired together. 6 missiles launched in a spread pattern. The Defiance remaining. Weapons struck the nearest cruiser all at once. The combined impact was too much. The cruiser's shields collapsed. Its hull cracked open like an egg. The ship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the entire system. 2 down, Tony said. But we're out of missiles. The remaining 3 cruisers closed in. Their weapons were charging again. The Defiant was wounded and nearly out of ammunition. Sir, I have an idea, Sam said. It's crazy, but it might work. Let's hear it. We ram them. Full speed, right into their formation. Jake stared at his navigator. That's suicide. Maybe. But look at their positions. They're bunched up, trying to get clear shots at us. If we hit them at the right angle, double quotes Jake saw it. The 3 cruisers were close together, their shields overlapping. If the Defiant hit them at full speed, the collision might damage all 3 ships. Lisa, can the engines handle it? For about 30 seconds. Then they'll explode. 30 seconds is all we need. Sam, plot a ramming course. The Defiant turned toward the enemy ships. Her remaining engine glowed white-hot as Lisa pushed it, past all safety limits. The ship accelerated toward the 3 cruisers. They're firing, Kelly warned. Energy beams reached out for the Defiant. But the ship was moving too fast to track properly. The beams passed through empty space. Brace for impact, Jake ordered. The Defiant hit the formation at full speed. Her reinforced bow smashed into the lead cruiser's side. The impact sent both ships spinning. The Defiant's hull cracked but held together. The collision pushed the damaged cruiser into its neighbor. The 2 ships scraped against each other, their shields sparking and failing. The 3rd cruiser tried to avoid the wreckage, but was too slow. All 3 ships were damaged. But the Defiant was hurt too. Her hull was cracked in a dozen places. Her engine was dead. Emergency power was failing. Can we still fight? Jake asked. Railguns are still working, Tony said, but barely. Then we finish this. The Defiant's railguns fired their last shots. The tungsten slugs hit the closest cruiser's bridge. The ship went dark and began to drift. The other 2 cruisers were trying to retreat, but their engines were damaged. They moved slowly, leaking atmosphere and sparks. Let them go, Jake said. We've done enough. The Defiant drifted among the wreckage. 3 Zephyrian cruisers were destroyed. 2 others were fleeing with heavy damage. The small human ship had won again. Damage report, Jake said. It's bad, Lisa replied, but we're alive. Give me 6 hours and I can get us moving again. Jake nodded. They had survived another impossible fight, but he knew more enemies would come. The Zephyrians would not give up easily. Kelly, send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we've engaged 5 enemy cruisers. 3 destroyed, 2 damaged, and retreating. Sir, they're really not going to believe this. Then tell them to check the wreckage. The proof is floating right here. The Defiant began emergency repairs. Around her, the debris of the battle drifted in space. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about the old human ship. She might be weak, but she was far from helpless. 2 weeks had passed since the cruiser battle. The Defiant was hiding in an abandoned mining station, making repairs. But Captain Jake Morrison knew they couldn't hide forever. Sir, we're getting reports from across the sector, Kelly Brown said. The Zephyrians are scared. They're calling us the Nightmare ship now. Jake smiled grimly. Fear was a weapon too. If the enemy was afraid, they would make mistakes. What kind of reports? Trade convoys are traveling in larger groups. Military. Patrols have doubled. Some civilian ships are refusing to leave port. Tony Walsh looked up from the weapons station. Good. Let them be scared. The old weapons expert had been busy during the repairs. The ship's machine shop was working around the clock. Every piece of metal they could find was being turned into ammunition. "How are we doing on supplies?" Jake asked. "Better than expected," Tony said. "I've turned our spare parts into railgun slugs, even melted down some kitchen equipment." "The food processors?" Dr. Nina Clark asked as she entered the bridge. "We don't need fancy food, but we do need ammunition." Nina shook her head, but didn't argue. She understood the situation as well as anyone. "What about the biological samples?" Jake asked. Nina looked uncomfortable. "I've been studying the Zephyrian medical data we captured. Their biology is very different from ours. Some Earth bacteria could be dangerous to them. Could be? Would be. Their immune systems have no defense against common human pathogens. A simple cold virus could kill them." Jake felt a chill. Using biological weapons crossed a line that humans had never wanted to cross. But the Zephyrians had destroyed entire colonies without warning. How would we deploy something like that? The simplest way would be to contaminate their air supply. Any ship they board would spread the infection. "I'm not ordering you to do this," Jake said. "But prepare the options. We might need them." Nina nodded and left the bridge. Jake could see she was troubled by the request. But war forced people to make hard choices. "Contact," Sam Green said suddenly. 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace." Jake rushed to the tactical display. 3 Zephyrian destroyers had appeared near the mining station. They were smaller than cruisers, but faster and more maneuverable. "They found us," Kelly said. "They're scanning the station." "How did they know we were here?" "They're checking every abandoned facility in the sector." It was only a matter of time. Jake made a quick decision. "We run, but not yet. Let them get close first." The Defiant was docked inside the mining station. The facility was large enough to hide a ship her size, but it wouldn't fool the detailed. "Scan. They're launching boarding pods," Sam reported. "Trying to search the station." "Perfect. Tony, are the surprises ready?" "Yes, sir. The station is rigged with our spare missiles." Remote detonation. Jake had learned to fight dirty. The Zephyrians expected clean, honorable combat. They would get neither. Wait until all 3 ships are close, then light them up. The enemy destroyers moved closer to the station, their boarding pods attached to the facility's hull. Zephyrian soldiers began cutting their way inside. "Now," Jake said. The mining station exploded. 20 missiles detonated at once, turning the facility into a cloud of fire and metal. The 3 destroyers were caught in the blast. 2 ships were destroyed instantly. The 3rd was badly damaged, its hull cracked and venting atmosphere. "The Defiant is launching," Sam announced as their ship burst from the wreckage. The surviving destroyer tried to turn and fight, but its weapons were damaged. The ship could barely maneuver. "Finish it," Jake ordered. The railguns fired. Tungsten slugs punched through the destroyer's weakened hull. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. 3 more down," Tony said with satisfaction. But Jake was thinking ahead. The Zephyrians would send more ships. Bigger ships. The Defiant needed to change tactics. "Sam, plot a course for the Kepler system. We're going hunting." "Sir?" "They're looking for us. So let's give them something to find." The Defiant jumped to hyperspace. Behind her, the destroyed mining station drifted in space. Another victory for the Nightmare ship. When they reached the Kepler system, Jake put his new plan into action. The Defiant would attack supply convoys and patrol ships, but she would also leave calling cards. "I want every attack to look different," Jake told his crew. "Sometimes we use railguns, sometimes missiles. Sometimes we ram them. The enemy should never know what to expect." The campaign of terror began. The Defiant would appear without warning, strike hard, and vanish. Each attack was different from the last. A supply convoy was hit by railgun fire that tore through their cargo holds. The ships survived, but their supplies were ruined. Contaminated food and medical supplies spread panic through the Zephyrian fleet. Patrol ship was destroyed by a missile that contained industrial acid. The corrosive liquid ate through the hull, killing the crew slowly and horribly. Another patrol was attacked by the Defiant, ramming one ship at full speed. The collision destroyed both vessels, but the psychological effect was devastating. "They're calling us the mad ship now," Kelly reported. "Their crews are requesting transfers. Some are deserting." "Good," Jake said. "Fear is our best weapon." But the Zephyrians were adapting too. They began traveling in larger groups. They changed their routes randomly. They even started using decoy ships. "Sir, we have a problem," Sand said. "Long-range sensors are picking up a battle group, 5 heavy cruisers and a dreadnought." Jake felt his blood run cold. A dreadnought was a ship killer. It had enough firepower to destroy a dozen ships like the Defiant. "They're coming for us," Nina said. "This is a hunting fleet. Then we hunt the hunters," Jake replied. "Tony, how many missiles do we have left?" 15, but they're all special loads. Chemical explosives, acid, biological agents." "Biological agents?" Nina looked uncomfortable. "I prepared some samples. Earth bacteria that would be lethal to Zephyrians. But Jake, using these weapons would save human lives," Jake finished. "The Zephyrians started this war. They destroyed our colonies. Now they want to destroy us." "What are your orders, sir?" Tony asked. Jake was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the human colonies that had been destroyed. Millions of innocent people killed without warning. The Zephyrians had shown no mercy. "Load the biological weapons," he said finally. "But only use them if we have no choice." The crew prepared for battle. But this fight would be different. The Zephyrians had sent their best ships and their best crews. They were coming for revenge. "Sir, the dreadnought is launching fighters," Kelly reported. 20 small craft. "They're trying to box us in," Sam said. "The fighters will force us toward the cruisers. Then we surprise them." "Lisa, how long can you overload the engines?" "Maybe 5 minutes. Then they'll explode. 5 minutes is all we need." "Sam, plot a course straight through their formation." "Sir, that's suicide." "Maybe, but they won't expect it. And sometimes the best defense is a good offense." The Defiant accelerated toward the enemy fleet. Her engines glowed white-hot as Lisa pushed them past all safety limits. The ship was a missile aimed at the heart of the enemy formation. "They're firing," Kelly warned. Energy beams reached out from the cruisers. But the Defiant was moving too fast to track properly. The beams passed through empty space. "Fighters closing from both sides," Tony reported. "Ignore them. Stay on course." The Defiant plunged into the enemy formation. She passed between 2 cruisers, her hull glowing from their energy weapons. But the ship held together. "Fire everything," Jake ordered. The railguns fired. Missiles launched in all directions. The Defiant's weapons struck 3 cruisers at once. The ships were damaged, but not destroyed. But something else happened. The biological weapons had been loaded into 2 of the missiles. They struck the lead cruiser and exploded, spreading their deadly cargo through the ship's air system. Within minutes, the cruiser's crew began to fall sick. The Earth bacteria attacked their immune systems like acid. The ship went dark as its crew died at their stations. "1 cruiser is down," Kelly reported. "The others are backing away." The Zephyrians had never faced biological weapons before. They didn't understand what was happening. Fear spread through their fleet faster than the disease. "They're calling for medical assistance," Kelly said. "They think it's some kind of poison gas." Let them think that, Jake said. Fear of the unknown is the worst fear of all. The dreadnought was still coming. Its massive weapons were charging. For a killing shot. The Defiant couldn't survive a direct hit from those guns. Lisa, emergency jump, Jake ordered. Get us out of here. Engines are too damaged, she replied. We need 5 minutes to cool down. We don't have 5 minutes. The dreadnought's main guns fired. A beam of pure energy reached out for the Defiant. But Sam was ready. He threw the ship into a wild spin that carried them away from the beam. That was too close, Tony said. It's going to fire again, Sam warned. I can't dodge forever. Jake made a desperate decision. All power to the railguns. One last shot. Sir, the dreadnought's armor is too thick. Our slugs won't penetrate. We're not aiming for the armor. Target their main gun. If we can damage it. The railguns charged with the last of the ships. Power. The Defiant was dead in space, but her weapons still worked. Firing, Tony said. 2 tungsten slugs shot across space. They struck the dreadnought's main gun, just as it was charging for another shot. The weapon exploded, tearing a hole in the massive ship's hull. Direct hit, Tony report. 6 months had passed since the dreadnought battle. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the newly upgraded Defiant. The ship looked almost the same on the outside, but everything had changed on the inside. New engines gave her twice the speed. Better armor protected her hull. Advanced computers helped with targeting. But most importantly, she still carried her old railguns, the weapons that had made her famous across the galaxy. Captain, we're receiving new orders, Kelly Brown said. From her communication station. Jake read the message on his screen. His eyes widened in surprise. What is it, sir? Tony Walsh asked. We're being sent to the Zephyrian home system as part of the peace talks. The crew was quiet for a moment. Peace talks meant the war was ending. But why send the Defiant? Sir, why us? Sam Green asked. Wouldn't they send a diplomat ship? Read the full message, Jake said. The Zephyrians specifically requested us. They want the Defiant to escort their surrender fleet to Earth. Dr. Nina. Clark looked puzzled. That doesn't make sense. Why would they want the ship that terrorized them? Jake smiled. Because they respect us. Fear and respect often go together. The journey to the Zephyrian home system took 3 days. When they arrived, Jake was amazed by what he saw. Hundreds of Zephyrian ships waited in orbit around their capital world. The entire fleet was preparing to surrender. Incoming transmission. Kelly reported. It's from the Zephyrian flagship. Put it on screen. The face that appeared was alien, but somehow familiar. Blue skin, large eyes, and a crown of crystal spikes. This was Admiral Vexver, the commander Jake had been fighting for months. Captain Morrison, the alien said in careful English. I am Admiral Vexver of the Zephyrian Empire. I request permission to come aboard your vessel. Granted, Admiral. But I have to ask why. Because I wish to meet the human who taught us the true meaning of warfare. An hour later, Admiral Vexver stood on the Defiance Bridge. He was tall and thin, wearing a uniform covered in metal decorations. But his eyes were tired, like a soldier who had seen too much fighting. Your ship is smaller than I expected, he said, looking around the bridge. Size isn't everything, Jake replied. No, you taught us that lesson well. The Admiral walked to the weapons station. These are the railguns that destroyed so many of our ships? They are. Such simple weapons. Yet they defeated our most advanced defenses. He turned to face Jake. We studied your kind for 50 years. We knew your tactics, your weapons, your strategies. But we never understood your true nature. Which is? You adapt, you survive. You never give up, even when defeat seems certain. The Admiral's voice was filled with respect. We destroyed your colonies, thinking it would break your spirit. Instead, it made you more dangerous. Tony Walsh spoke up. You killed millions of innocent people. Yes, the Admiral said sadly. And for that we will pay. But that is not why I am here. Then why are you here? Jake asked. To ask a favor. Our people are afraid. They have heard stories about the nightmare ship that appears from darkness. Children have nightmares about the ghost vessel that cannot be stopped. You want us to help calm their fears? I want you to do something more important. I want you to lead our surrender fleet to Earth. Jake was surprised. Why? Because if the Defiant escorts us, our people will know the war is truly over. If the most feared ship in the galaxy shows mercy, others will believe peace is possible. Jake looked at his crew. They were all listening carefully. This was not what any of them had expected. What exactly are you asking? Escort our ships to Earth. Show the galaxy that humans can be merciful as well as terrible. Prove that the nightmare can end. Jake thought for a long moment. The Defiant had become a symbol of human determination. But maybe it was time for her to become something else. A symbol of peace. We'll do it, he said finally. The surrender fleet was massive. 300 Zephyrian ships of all sizes. Warships, transports, civilian vessels. The entire surviving fleet of a once mighty empire. The Defiant took position at the front of the formation. The small human ship led the alien fleet toward Earth, like a shepherd guiding sheep. This feels strange, Sam said as he piloted the ship. Leading the enemy instead of fighting them. Former enemy, Jake corrected. The war is over. The journey took 2 weeks. Along the way, other human ships joined the convoy. Soon, ships from a dozen different species were part of the procession. Word had spread across the galaxy that the famous Defiant was leading the Zephyrian surrender. Captain, we're receiving messages from across known space, Kelly reported. The media is calling this the March of Peace. What are they saying? That the nightmare ship has become the dream of peace. That if humans and Zephyrians can end their war, any conflict can be resolved. When they reached Earth, the entire human fleet was waiting. Hundreds of ships formed an honor guard for the surrender ceremony. But at the center of it all was the Defiant. The ceremony took place in Earth orbit. Representatives from dozens of species attended. The Zephyrian Emperor himself came to sign the peace treaty. Jake stood on the bridge, watching the proceedings. On the main screen, Admiral Dexfer was beside him, no longer an enemy, but something like a friend. Your ship has made history twice, the Admiral said. First by showing the galaxy how to fight impossible odds. Now by showing how to make peace from war. The Defiant always was a special ship, Jake replied. She just needed the right crew to bring out her potential. What will you do now that the war is over? Keep exploring. Keep protecting innocent people. That's what the Defiant does best. The peace treaty was signed. The war was officially over. The Zephyrian Empire would pay reparations for the destroyed colonies. Their military would be reduced. But there would be no more killing dot as the ceremony ended. Jake received a message from Earth Command. The Defiant was being honored with the highest decoration in the human fleet. She would be remembered as the ship that saved civilization. But, more importantly, she was being assigned to a new mission. The Defiant would patrol the Outer Rim, protecting trade routes and exploring new systems. She would carry the message of human determination to the farthest corners of the galaxy. Well, crew, Jake said to his bridge team, ready for our next adventure? Always, sir, Lisa Kane replied from the engineering station. Where are we going? Sam asked. The Andromeda sector. There are reports of pirates attacking merchant ships. Tony Walsh smiled. Pirates, huh? They won't know what hit them. Let's hope they're smart enough to surrender when they see us coming." Jake said that the Defiant turned away from Earth and accelerated toward the outer rim. Behind her, the surrender fleet was being processed and the peace treaty was being celebrated. But the small ship that had made it all possible was already moving toward her. Next mission. Admiral Vexvoa watched from his flagship as the Defiant disappeared into hyperspace. The human ship had taught his people many lessons. About warfare, about determination, about mercy. But the most important lesson was this: sometimes the smallest, weakest thing could change the entire galaxy. The Defiant had been written off as useless junk, but she had become the most famous ship in known spacedot as the Admiral returned to his quarters. He wondered what other surprises the humans might have in store for the galaxy. He had a feeling that the Defiant's story was far from overdot in the depths of space. The Nightmare ship continued her patrol, but she was no longer just a weapon of war. She was a symbol of hope, proof that no matter how dark things became, there was always a chance for something better. The weakest warship had become the galaxy's worst nightmare, but in the end, she had become something even more powerful. She had become a dream of peace. Dreams, Jake Morrison knew, were the most dangerous weapons of all.